nose. Can you hear now?
Okay, let's move forward. We're going to reconvene into regular city council meeting this time. We are going to go to item 4.1, discuss June 2024 calendars. This will be handled by our city secretary, Don Stahl.
Mayor and council, the April, May, and June calendars are in your packet. Nothing has really changed on the April calendar. Please note the Heritage Jubilee is on the 26th, 27th, and 28th. We go to May. I did add a utility rates workshop on the 10th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And regular city council meetings are on the 7th and the 14th of May. And June, we will have the library summer reading kickoff is on June 4th from 5 to 7, right before the regular city council meeting at 6. And then we will have a city council meeting on the 18th at 6.
So, council, if you'll look at May, normally we have the 1st and 3rd, but because of a scheduling conflict for myself, I had to move to the 14th. Those are okay for council? The 7th and 14th, still only 2, but,
I'll miss the 14th for sure.
okay. So, is there anybody else that has a conflict on the 14th? Okay. Then in June, again, on the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of the month is when that's scheduled. However, what about June, where's Juneteenth celebration?
It's scheduled on the 15th.
So
And then they'll have their Juneteenth celebration on the 15th and 16th of June.
that's the day after the council meeting, right? What about the celebrations for Breezy Hill? Councilwoman, do you know anything? Is that on there, correct?
It'll be 3 days, the 15th, the 16th, and the 19th.
Okay. All right. Then are we had, well, normally on that weekend, didn't we do a baseball, softball game? City of Terrell versus State Hospital. Are we still doing that? Does anybody know?
I can check on that, I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Well, it's in the works. Okay. All right. Anybody have any comments or questions for those months?
On June the 28th, I have a work conflict, so I will not be available for a workshop. I'm wondering if we have a general.
Alternate
council
date?
Type of workshop.
We were going to cover some preliminary budget information on that date, and I could look into, well, I could just ask, if we polled council, would we get attendance on the 21st? I hate to, I was worried about doing the 21st because it seemed like a really busy week to do council meeting,
Right.
Juneteenth workshop. And I didn't want to push that to the 5th because obviously that's got its own problem. But of course, we could also, I mean, from staff's point of view, we would do any afternoon that week.
The 21st is okay with me. June 21st. Move the workshop on, from the 28th.
Yeah, June 21st should be fine.
Okay.
So maybe we move it to June the 21st. Let's shoot for June the 21st,
Yes, sir.
all right? And do a calendar invite for all the council, and that way they'll have it on there. Anyone else? All right, next on the agenda is discuss and consider Building Standards Commission appointments. Again, City Secretary Don Stahl.
Mayor and council, the Building and Standards Commission roster is in your packet. We have a couple of openings on that board, and this board falls under the oversight of Phil Robinson.
Hey, Phil, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
I can. You got it going now.
Oh, well, that's great.
For the
Okay,
record,
that's
Phil
what a
Robinson
relief.
has joined the council meeting. And perfect timing, man, because we're up to your appointments, if you're
Okay,
ready.
great.
We just
I am ready,
introduced
and I,
item 4.2, which was discuss and consider Building Standards Commission appointments. Do you have any
I do.
recommendations?
Yeah, I do have recommendations. So I want to go ahead and attempt to appoint Brian Thayer and Troy Drollinger. I know we kind of discussed some of the considerations around these candidates, and I spoke with them both and kind of I've vetted my candidates, and I feel like they're really good appointees for these particular boards. So I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. Do I need to do each one individually, or
You can do them together.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to appoint both Brian Thayer and Troy Drollinger to the Building Standards Commission.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Phil Robinson, District 5, a second from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, to appoint Brian Fair and Troy Drollinger to our Building and Standards Commission. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 5.1, discuss update to the FY24, FY25, FY26 strategic plan. This is going to be handled by our senior policy analyst, Omar Amata.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just to quickly,
Wait. There you go.
Yep.
oh, perfect. So the PowerPoint that is in your agenda is the PowerPoint that Mr. Sims went over last council meeting. So all the information is going to be the same. I just wanted to go over the timeline for kind of what you have. This time around, you do have a red line version of the strategic plan over the next couple of weeks before May 7th. Feel free to go over that, see what the department heads, Mr. Sims, Mr. Mills have put in there. And then the time between April 26th and, April 16th and May 7th is going to be time for you guys to ask questions and emails. Anything we do, we can kind of clearly go over that. And then it will be back on the agenda for you guys on May 7th. For discussion, and then it will be also on the agenda on May 14th for city council consideration and vote to go forward into the next year.
And just as a point of clarity, the 14th is just the date that we laid out. If for any reason, any council person, I know Councilwoman Thomas, you just mentioned you may not be able to attend on the 14th. If we push that, we're not creating a time problem. If we push that to the first meeting in June. So my goal is to just get input. I had a good email today from one of the council people about some ideas related to the vision statement. And I'd say, keep those thoughts going. I think council really needs to own that vision statement update. I think that's a really important topic for you. So as we collect those, we'll try to put that into a package to email out to everybody so you can kind of see, okay, how's that feedback going? And then any tweaks, you'll see those again on May the 7th, and you can kind of decide on the 7th how much time you need to finalize your thoughts on the document.
So where are we on the vision statement? Have we narrowed that down?
Well, right now, we had 4 options that staff presented, and we were just trying to
Okay.
get the lid open.
Okay.
Councilmember Robeson is the person who sent in an idea about sort of tweaking and adjusting those. So I thought that was a good bit of input that we got from him. and we'll just continue to gather input. Anybody who's got thoughts, send it in. And like I said, as soon as I gather a little fleet of council input, we'll have Omira get an email out with a little bit of a recap of this is the input we have so far, and this is what you can anticipate seeing on May the 7th, just to get your thinking going on it.
So it looks like, council, that our target date would be May the 7th for the final red line document. However, let's don't hit them all on the 6th with a bunch of red lines, right? So if you would please try to hit that April 16th through May the 1st with any questions and meetings for Mr. Sims or Mr. Mills, and any red lines that you have, again, or through Omira as well. So anybody have any questions on that? No, thank you. Our next item on the agenda says Project Review Committee update. This is going to be handled by our downtown project manager, Raylan Smith.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Got quite a few updates for you this evening. We're going to start out with Glenn Marshall and also Nathan Ante are here from Kimling Horn. They are the ones that are our consultants for our Complete Streets, which, as you recall, is our Highway 80 and Spur 226. They're going to give you an update from our last town hall meeting, which was February of 2023. I just kind of go over some of the meetings. What we've done is wrapped up our recommendation, and we're bringing forward a recommended memorandum of understanding that all of our entities, including COG, TxDOT, the county, et cetera, would agree to for future construction of Highway 80. So I'm going to turn it over to Glenn.
Thanks, Raylan. So, as Raylan said, we have had a long process for the Complete Streets project where we had the town hall last February. Here, I think I can make it work here. Okay, great. And we got input from the public at our town hall. There were 5 options that we presented to the public, and we took that feedback and we got all of the different concepts and ideas from all those that the public liked, and we took that back to the PRC, which is the Project Review Committee, and we created this. What you see here is the blended option, which takes all of the elements that the community liked, and then we took that and met with TxDOT to make sure that all of these elements conform to TxDOT design, and that later they would not shoot down any of the elements that the public and the Project Review Committee wanted. And so this is the plan that was developed, and we are hoping to adopt in this memorandum of understanding as the preferred alternative to move forward for the design of US 80 and Spur 226. And as Raylan said, this memorandum of understanding document will be signed by these entities, and starting with the city manager.
So if you could go back to the map real quick, just think about your process here, council. We need our public input to go talk to TxDOT. And so I know it seems like a big time lag, but the opportunity to get public input and then sit down and have a series of meetings with TxDOT, the Regional Transportation Council, and some of our other potential grant partners on this, that's just a lengthy process and a lengthy period of time. The way to kind of study this, and again, it's probably more information on this page than you can stare at just at one moment, but on the far left-hand corner, you can take a look at, oh, okay, this is what they're telling me about US 80 in the core downtown area. Number one piece of input that we heard was keep the parking. And so if you read their little chart over there, yes, we're keeping the parking, and our recommendation is, despite a request by TxDOT that we remove parking, when we went out to the public, I think the public did its job and said, no, we're keeping parking. That feedback was able to go back to TxDOT. It did take some time to work through that process with TxDOT, but you can see what the recommendations are there. Now, the question would be, when will that get built? Well, right now, part of the recommendation is, let's just keep working with TxDOT and figuring out when TxDOT is going to have that on their docket for them to pay for. And so that's another very important thing. So again, lots of details there. We think Spur 226 is a wonderful opportunity for us. You can see a cross section there for Virginia that goes from US 80 south all the way to State Highway 34. So there's a lot of data on there, a lot of information on there, plenty of time to look at it. But as you zoom in on it, feel free to set up a time to talk to Raylan. You'll see this presented at the paddock board, and you'll see it out and about before we actually do our voting on it. So great progress by the team here, and good to know that TxDOT is happy with a version of it that our citizens will also be happy with. That's a great meeting together.
Okay, if you would please remind the council of how this process worked, what notices were sent out, how we contacted the public. That way, everybody's comfortable with, yeah, we did reach out to the community. We can't force people to come to these meetings, but we made every effort to let everybody know what was going on.
Yes.
So that there's no questions there. And then finally, the process that you used to gather the data and assimilate it so that we would have something to work with to present to TxDOT. Just as
Yes.
brief as you can.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mayor. We had a sub-consultant, JBJ, that was assigned to do public outreach on this project. Prior to the first town hall that we presented this information to the public with all the options, they did a canvassing of all the neighborhoods, all the downtown businesses and community members to notify them that this town hall was going to take place. And we also made it available via online on a live stream, as well as comments to be able to be provided electronically if they could not make it. We have all of those comments documented and filed away, just to reinforce that we had taken in the public thought into consideration on all these design elements. And then we then took that back to the PRC, the Project Review Committee, and said this was all the things that the public thought was very important. And so at that point is when we developed this option, which is a combination of all the other, all of the other alternatives that we presented.
Good. I like that. And I now remember JBJ handling that, but we needed a reminder. Does everybody remember doing that and the process that we took so that we didn't exclude anybody? Certainly not intentionally, but unintentionally either. There was no effort to leave anybody out in the discussion.
Of course.
Right? So, but to be clear, these are residents of the city of Terrell that were contacted. So if you lived in the county, you wouldn't have any input, right?
Well, I wanted to add that.
Unless you had a business downtown.
Right, and I also wanted to add that whenever we went back for the reprogramming of our county bond funds, at that time, your commissioners were also updated on your Complete Streets project. So we have provided those updates at the county level along the way. And then I know that Councilmember Velasquez and also Rick Carmona, y'all were both in attendance at several of the small business meetings that happened there at the chamber, and so we had a number of just one-on-one conversations with either citizens or businesses.
Right, okay. Is everybody comfortable with the fact of how this process worked? Because as we move forward now, we'll be presenting our findings to TxDOT to say, yeah, this is what we're wanting to do, even though we're waiting for UPR or Union Pacific for some funding, right? Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, listen, two things are already turning into reality here. One is that we're able to use this planning effort here to talk about the far east side of town, and just having this plan in place, having gone to the public about it and met with them, really gave us legs behind the Terrell State Hospital access route. That's a very important element of this whole plan. It frees up traffic out of what you might think of as being the East Bryn neighborhood. And so the fact that we had the planning work done, we had a public meeting, we showed a new entrance for the state hospital, that really helps us and has allowed that project to move forward. Same thing with some of the other options, because we did coordinate this with our Quiet Zones program. So we'll be working on, like I said, Spur 226. We've got grant partners available there. TxDOT, we hope, will be a partner with us moving forward. So getting their input has been hugely important. So just lots of coordination on it, and we don't want to leave any of our partners out, right? TxDOT has a part of this, Union Pacific has an interest in it, the county has an interest in it, the Regional Transportation Council. You know, just the lay of the land. The fact of the matter is US 80 is a regional route that goes right through the middle of our downtown. And we don't want Terrell taxpayers to be footing the bill for a regional route. We want to figure out how to bring our stakeholders in to work with them on long-term solutions.
Do we anticipate at some point a light or a signal there at the entrance of the new state hospital entrance? I know we have one on Della Street, but is that going to be as it's warranted, or is there a
I
plan
would
in
say
place?
that TxDOT has quite the elaborate process for deciding traffic lights. We will be advocating for a traffic light relocation from Dulles to the state hospital entrance, but that wouldn't happen until that road is really up
Okay.
and going and they're done with the construction and all that sort of good stuff.
Okay. All right, good. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Glenn?
Mayor, I just want to say, I recall when I first got on council, how we, with our comprehensive plan, how we involved the community versus how we involve the community now by partnering with a company like JBJ was a tremendous boost in how we approach getting our citizens involved. And to me, this was just so much more of a better process than what we went through when we had our comprehensive plan, back in 2017, 2018. So I'm very pleased with how we partnered with everyone and how everybody just coordinated and collaborated their efforts. And the community, I know the people that I represent was very happy, you know, with the process and how the city thought of them as partners as well. They didn't see us as trying to lead the charge and lead them out.
Right.
So this was great.
Good.
I have a question for Glenn or Mike or Raylan. When I look at the plan, so I see there's, of course, in all of the different segments, whether it's 80 or, it looks like, oh no, not 34. Maybe Adelaide? Or Spur to,
That's Virginia.
Virginia, thank you. Virginia. When I look at Virginia and 80, and I think about the way that we're set up now, in which they are 2-lane, but there's no parking on the side. But when I look at the plans here, it looks like parking will be added in addition to the 2 lanes. Is that correct? So would TxDOT or would the city then purchase right away to make sure that there's parking on the side?
So let's decode what we've got arrows pointing at here, Glenn. So if I look at the bottom box, right, then that is the schematic for that portion of Spur 226, okay? And you see that little arrow going over there? The one that's hard to read is the one that is the box there that, and I guess maybe I'll use Dawn's computer so we're all talking about the same thing. So Glenn, I'm gonna try to get you to answer.
Sounds good.
I want to point at this. so
Okay.
Everybody's on the same page. This schematic right here. This schematic right here is the Spur 226 schematic. So I think the first part of the councilwoman's question is, could you just describe that schematic so we understand? That's very hard to read there. So just quickly run through what's on the schematic related to Spur 226.
That would just be 2 lanes of travel in each direction, separated by a median, which it is today, with no parking on either side, which there isn't adjacent to the existing ones today, but it does include a larger parkway and a larger opportunity for sidewalks, where there are no continuous sidewalks today on Spur 226.
Okay, and it looks like I do see a note there that says I'm assuming existing right-of-way, so then there would not be a plan to purchase additional right-of-way.
Correct. That was the main challenge of the core zone design, is to give the public most of what they wanted within the existing right-of-way due to the constriction of the building fronts being up against the right-of-way. So there was no opportunity to purchase more right-of-way and provide everything in the proposed core zone.
Okay.
So if you're zooming in, this one right here, and Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, this one right here is the one that we would call core zone.
Yes.
So this is going to be the one that if you can kind of zoom in on it on your computer later on, you'll be able to zoom in on this one and see this is the one that shows we're preserving the existing parallel parking in the zones that have existing parallel parking. And then this little arrow over here is pointing at that part of US 80 where there is no existing parallel parking. And it's just reconfiguring what's out there to be more beneficial to pedestrians and some safety issues out there. And then the same thing on the east side of town where it says urban transition zone over here. That's a cross-section that's designed to be more favorable to pedestrians, a little bit safer overall. And again, you got to kind of really study the lane widths and that sort of thing. But this one right here is pointing to the east side. This one right here is the center core area with the on-street parking, and this one over here is the western side.
Okay. Good?
That clarifies, and I will also say that when you're not zoomed in, parkway and parking look the same.
No, it's a tough chore, but by all means, ask away, and we're happy to get you answers, and we can I actually have a big version of this in my office, and we can share a bigger version.
All right. Phil, looked like you had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of contribute to what Councilman Simpson had to say. That I went to these meetings before I was elected to the council to kind of see what the plan was for downtown. And I noted at those meetings that there were some very heated individuals about, a lot of the business owners downtown wanted to make sure that what was going to be done, didn't impact them in a negative way. And I felt like, the city really listened to a lot of the concerns and, didn't sort of press forward with any agenda that the business owners didn't agree to. And I think it's a really good template for how we should go forward with projects like these to kind of make sure we engage with the community. I know a lot of times we can't necessarily engage with the community in a council setting, when someone comes forward with a concern or complaint before council, but doing a sort of town hall type format like that, I think that was a very beneficial move to kind of get everyone on board with the planning, because there were a few different plans in play, as I recall. And, there were some very, adamant voices about some of those things. And it kind of made us, I think, immediately go, okay, we got to jettison those and pick one that kind of meets the needs of our business owners. And I think that was the right way to approach it. So I want to commend staff for approaching it that way.
All right. Thank you, Councilman.
And I just want to clarify, looking at this map, if we're preserving and keeping the parallel parking, that means traffic will be going both ways because we're keeping the parallel parking on both sides.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, there was, I'm glad you brought that up. There was definitely consideration of a version of this that was a one-way couplet. And there were issues in Austin with one-way couplet. There were issues locally with one-way couplet. There were, I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but there were just too many issues on one-way couplet to try to keep pressing forward on that thing.
Thank you.
So again, want to thank Kimberly Horn. Of course, we want to thank staff, and we want to thank JBJ for their assistance in getting all of this information and data so that we can move on to the next portion of it, which is to present it to TxDOT.
Yes, we have presented this plan to TxDOT. The next step is to get council on board to start circulating this memorandum of understanding for this preferred alternative. And then we are going to present this preferred alternative to the public later this year.
So we'll review that next council meeting and ask for authorization. Okay, good. Council, y'all good?
Yes.
All right, next item on the agenda is discuss lease agreement for 200 South Virginia. News report, Mayor. Oh, we do have a good, no, I don't see it on mine. I have a project review committee update. We just did that one.
Lease agreement.
Yeah, so the next item on the agenda is discuss lease agreement for 200 South Virginia Street between the City of Terrell and Star Transit. Again, this is going to be handled by our downtown project manager, Raylan Smith.
I also have Laura West here from the Ryder C. Halsey Public Library. She's going to talk a little bit about the programming, but I promised Rebecca that I would start this statement with, as you know, we are outgrowing our library. So clearly, I am coming to you this evening for lease space for our library. We do have an opportunity to lease the train depot facility. Star Transit does have that available. They have negotiated a very affordable lease rate. I have been in conversations with them, and we've thrown around some different ideas. However, with the programming and the Wings program in particular that's been growing at the library, our recommendation is that that space be used for that particular program, and I'm going to let Laura explain that. But as far as funding, so your lease and property payments, those will be paid for by the TERS #1 Downtown Project Operations Office. And then the programming itself is also already covered. So this would just be an additional expense for the TERS 1.
Okay.
Council and Mayor, thank you for your consideration of this project tonight. I am here at the Library Director Rebecca's request to discuss with you the possibility of the train depot, the Terrell Train Depot, being an additional facility for the Wings Adult Education Department. To give you an idea of what the Wings Department is facing with adult education programming, whenever I took over this position on April 1st of 2022, we had 15 total students for all programming. To date, I closed out the 2023-2024 academic year on April 1st, and I had registered just a little over 500 students in the Wings Adult Education Program. We have a large number of students that participate in GED classes as well as ESL classes, and we have added in new features, including something called Senior Planet, which helps bring important technology skills to the senior adults and other adults in our community that may need some supplemental help with that. Part of what we are looking at doing with the train depot is turning it into a workforce station. And in your packet there, you should have a one-page brief description of it. At the invitation of the downtown project manager, Raylene, Becca and I were able to tour the facility to see if it was something that might accommodate Wings adult education programming. And I am happy to report that the current layout of the building would facilitate us to entertain 6 more classroom spaces than what we currently have. Wings currently meets at the Adult Education Center off of Catherine Street, which is basically a one-room classroom. And we are in an agreement with TVCC to utilize their classrooms two nights a week for ESL classes, and all other Wings programming we are trying to facilitate at the main library's community room amongst all the other programming that the library offers. So this facility would be very important to the growth of Wings to accommodate all of these students that we have coming in. We have had a record-breaking year for GED graduates. I'm happy to report on Eclipse Day alone, I had 2 students pass their GED exam, and that brings us up to 8 since December that we've had graduate with their GED certification. So it's an exciting record-breaking year in that, but they are also wondering what is their next thing? What can they do? How can they be a part of workforce here in the city of Terrell? And so our hopes would be to not only use this facility as a workforce station where we can teach additional classes that would help them better prepare to be a part of the workforce here in Terrell, but it would also allow us the space to become a testing facility. There is no other testing facility in Kaufman County that allows a student to take their GED exam. We worked with TVCC last year, trying to see if they would allow us to come in partnership with them using their testing facility, and they were not interested in that partnership. So we are trying to develop a plan to bring testing to Terrell and Kaufman County. We have a great need for it. I field approximately 12 phone calls a week from people trying to figure out how to take a GED exam. This testing facility would be through Pearson VUE, which is the state's only recommended testing provider. Pearson View, if we become a testing center, would allow us to then administer other tests, workforce skills-related tests, in addition to the GED exam. So it would be a win-win as far as we can offer GED testing here locally to our students who are taking tests every 10 weeks, as well as opening the doors to other professionals in the community that may need to take testing for different credentials that they may need. If you look there at the packet, you will see that part of the facility details that it currently has is it has 2 large conference rooms. One of those conference rooms would conveniently accommodate the testing requirements, the facility requirements that Pearson View requires. They have very strict guidelines for what this testing facility can be like, including ADA compliance, the schematics and the layout of the room, and this particular location and the way that it is already designed and laid out meets their requirements. If you also follow down the page there, you will see a variety of different tests, exams that can be administered on these different corporations that are looking for employees who have some sort of credentialing. And so these are some of the large names that you would see that we would be allowed to offer testing on their behalf for employees. And if you would like to see an entire list of those tests, there's a link there. Some opportunities that we could include with this in conjunction with the testing would be certified nursing assistant classes, CompTIA, which is technology, computer classes, hospitality management, human resources classes, business marketing, finance, and so on and so forth. All of these types of classes are already part of curriculum packaging that Wings Adult Education Program uses successfully in our other programs, specifically GED and our ESL classes. So it's not that we would have to go out there and discover something new and reinvent the wheel. We already have access to it. We would just be using what we're already paying for. And with that, I would ask if any of you have any questions for me.
Yeah, so would there be any need to do upgrades as it pertains to either IT, internet, Wi-Fi, fiber optics, or is it set and ready to go?
My understanding is that it's ready to go with the
Okay.
technology and the resources that we need.
All right,
We're benefiting greatly from the fact that Star Transit really did a good job taking care of this building during the time where they were in it. And then when they were leasing it, it was being leased and actively used by an engineering firm that, kept everything up to date. So
great.
it's got ADA access. It's been a well-kept building.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm looking at the lease agreement now, and $3,100 a month is what I'm looking at, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, which is a fair price, $3,150, yeah.
This is ready to be moved in right now? Like, if you wanted to go in tomorrow, could you just say, well, we can just move in?
For the most part, I can make it happen.
We'll have to have, the electricity turned on and water, which we know people, and, yeah.
And that's awesome. I'm really proud of this program. Great job. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm just excited that the Wings is doing as much as it's doing for our residents locally and
Thank you.
continuing to grow. So thank you for your hard work. I know it's important, education's important for everybody, and I think everybody up here will tell you that. So that's good. Stephanie, do you have something?
I do have a question about
Yes, ma'am.
location, location, location.
Yes, along the train
Nursing
track.
Education, I work in the West End.
Yes.
One of our biggest complaints, that DART train, our
Yes.
students, you can't give them enough earplugs. You can't, we hear, yeah, I'm just thinking location, exams. Have you guys thought about that?
We
based
face the
on-
same situation already at the public library with all the emergency vehicles that come there. We have an ambulance company just 2 blocks away from us, and all the emergency trucks seem to come by. So we face that already. The students are aware of it and prepared for it. And so, yes, the day that I did tour, there was a train that happily came by while I was there. And so it's the train. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know what the decibels is for a train versus an ambulance or emergency vehicle.
yes, yes.
Mr. Simmons?
I just know we got a train right there in the
Yes.
West End. That's
Yes.
even, and building is even closer than the DART train that passes. And, I mean, if we're not getting petitions to retake exams and all that because of the distraction and
Correct.
students can get, adult learners as well can get very
Absolutely.
creative when they're unsuccessful. But I do think we need the space. I do oversee the library board. I see it. I'm in there all the time. I know it's a need, but I'm just thinking about the location when I see that we want to give our community members and the people that need this program the highest environment and the best environment for success.
Understood.
So that's my concern, and that's just based on.
About was exploring the panels, because we would be able to bring in the noise panels on the inside of the building. So we threw that around just whenever we were talking about the other departments. I think, Glenn, whenever we walked through it with you, we talked about doing some of the things that we could do to the exterior wall on the inside, so.
And my other concern is staffing. Do we already have the staff to work, to expand to this area? How many square feet? What's the square footage that we're getting,
It's roughly 3,000 square feet.
over 3,000? Okay, it's about 3,150. Okay, so,
Most wing staffing is covered by contract laborers and volunteers. More than half of them are volunteers that are currently helping to facilitate the needs that we have. And so every year through the summer, since I've become the director, we open up for people that are interested in helping in the wings department, whether as a volunteer or as a contract labor staffer. And we have a grant that allows us to help offer them a small compensation for being willing to extend their services in teaching. We try to hire qualified educators and volunteers that have experience in the classroom to be able to help the citizens get the best that they can from us. And I think we've received a lot of positive feedback in that, and they noticed the difference in the program since we have been vetting them in a different way.
yeah, I think I would probably be more open to a shorter contract with renewable, based on seeing how our community members
Yes.
respond. It's not a no, but it's just those are my concerns, and I'm trying to be honest and transparent and just voice those concerns.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mayor,
Any
one
other
quick one.
questions or
Yes,
concerns?
go ahead.
No, it's, you gonna?
Thank you.
Go.
So I want to be direct to Mike, and if we don't have this answer today, then making sure that we do have the answer to help fully answer Stephanie's question on staffing. Do we anticipate to add any additional staffing, aside from the funding that's available for contracts / volunteers? Or will we be asking for any new staff, new FTEs or half an FTE?
My comment is, I actually hope the program grows, and I hope that we do have more need for more volunteers and more need for more contract labor. I would just say that, remember that this is really possible because your Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors is a believer in the program and is a believer in adult education. So if you go back just one page in the presentation there, you can see on the introductory comments on that front page that if you could move back one page, Dawn. The lease is the downtown office. So there's adequate funds in that existing line item to pay for the lease. And the programming for this all comes through the Texas Economic Development Corporation. The Terrell Economic Development Corporation. So that communication pipeline is great. We're able to communicate with their board. We're able to talk to them about needs. If we see that there's demands out there, then I can assure you the library staff will be working with the EDC about, great, we have good news. We need a little bit more money in the following year grant in order to ramp up for those programs. So I don't feel like that's going to end up being a bad news. That's going to end up being a good news if we end up to be in that world.
Just thinking budget-wise, what to expect from the library in the upcoming budget or budget amendments. When I think about the programming, the classes, I'm thinking about two different things. One, will some of the certificates or classes that we're looking to offer, will they overlap with what TVCC is offering? And does TVCC have any barriers of entry to those classes or certifications that maybe the library will not have? Because I also want to be mindful of duplicating services, especially within the same
Yes.
the same community, but would be open to seeing that if we're decreasing those barriers to entry, or we're providing them at different timeframes where maybe TVCC is not as willing to negotiate changing their offerings. And then second, just how are we, would love to learn in the future a little bit more about how are we identifying which classes to provide to our adult community. I'll say, there's been various classes where I have seen community members attending them, whether it's like Google Drive or computer, like entry-level computer basic skill classes, et cetera. But, how are we asking the community and identifying the programming?
With all of the students that apply for Wings Adult Education, they have a registration form, and on there, we pull certain demographic type questions. We ask them if they're employed, if they were employed, what their skills are, and sort of get that idea from the students whenever they enroll, what they are looking for. And so we have that pool of 500 this last year that we can look at and sort of see. As to the question about TVCC and overlapping with them, we have access to 140 different CTE courses, which are career and technology education courses. And so I know that the current facility there cannot facilitate 140 different classes, neither can we, but I can guarantee you with the list that I have that we won't overlap with that list of 140. So.
And are those some are they like self-paced classes, or they all have to be taught with an instructor?
All of the classes through Wings Adult Education Program have both an online component where a student can be self-paced and self-guided, as well as attend a face-to-face class.
Okay, which is a good option to have. Okay.
Yes.
And then I will, I'd always encourage and challenge to continue to seek additional partners like the Texas Workforce that's here in the city of Terrell as well, and see where we can continue to bring in dollars or support for the program.
Absolutely. They refer many of their individuals over to us, and we work with them all the time.
Thank you, Laura. You're doing
You're
a really
welcome.
great job.
Lori, will you review the statistics you told us about, from 15 students to 500? I scribbled those numbers, but I didn't really.
That's okay. When I took over on April 1st, there were 5 GED students and 10 ESL students. That is combined the basic class and the intermediate class at that point in time. I just closed out registration on April 1st. There were 191 ESL students and 171 GED students, and that does not include the other programs that we have, like Senior Planet and the technology skills classes that we have. That's just those 2 departments alone.
Did we have to turn anyone away because we didn't have room for them?
Absolutely, all the time, because we don't have the space or we don't have the class at a time in which they can attend. So we have waiting lists that nonstop that we keep, and as a spot opens up, we try to pull somebody off the waiting list and put them in that spot if they're still interested in taking it.
All right, thank you. Phil, did you have something? Or Councilwoman, are you done?
I
I'm
just want
sorry.
to make sure too, the 5-year, 64-month term doesn't, where we won't be doing this again in a year and a half or 2 years. When I look at that growth, it's a Band-Aid on it.
Absolutely, absolutely, I
But
recognize.
That's why I would like to see a shorter contract term as well. So if something better and bigger comes available, we
Just
could.
for discussion, would y'all be comfortable with a 24-month? Or, I'm just trying to figure out kind of which way you're.
Yeah, and I would say, Raylan, maybe part of that is we always have to remember, okay, you have 2 competing things out here. One is that we're buying the land underneath of this location. It's always been an odd duck because Star Transit bought the building but didn't buy the land from Union Pacific. So we're dealing with a public entity here. We're gonna have options to talk to Star Transit. I'm gonna take the council input as, hey, go back, talk to Star Transit, see what they're willing to do with what I would call a bailout provision. Maybe we need to bail out because the growth is really good. Maybe we need to bail out because we just decide there's a train horn problem. Maybe we need to bail out because the library ferry brought us a brand-new library, you know? So we have a couple of different options there, and I think it's well said by council that, hey, let's make sure that we have options. We're not dealing with a for-profit entity. I don't think they're gonna be, they're not gonna negatively receive our request for a tweak in the lease. So we've got a little time, we can go back and we can polish that up before you see it again. I think that's all great input, yeah.
Okay, because I'd like to take the leadership on that. Instead of the bailout, this many months, if we got community members needed, we're not gonna leave them out there stranded. We're gonna renew that with no question. I think 24 months is reasonable versus 64 months and a bailout. It just seems like it's more, where we take the lead on what we're gonna do. If something comes up, we may can get something, a bigger, better facility based on that. But, that's my stance, and that's what I'd like to see.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Robeson.
Yeah, I just want to first say that I'm a big supporter and I'm very enthusiastic about the Wings program. As Laura probably remembers, our au pair at my home from Columbia took the ESL program through the Wings program and was so enthusiastic about it and had nothing but amazing things to say about it. That said, as soon as I saw this, I had the same concerns that Councilman Holmes Thomas had regarding, someone trying to focus on a GE test or a nursing certification test, and then a train screaming by in the middle of them taking a test to try to concentrate. It doesn't seem like the right fit for what we're kind of fitting a square peg into a round hole here, it seems like. I know that whatever we can do with regard to expanding our facilities to offer more services, I think that's a great thing. But yeah, I definitely think having either a shorter term lease or a bailout is appropriate in case we determine, hey, this is not working at all for a classroom setting. And, the quiet zones may come into effect and be kind of something that mitigates some of that. But in the meantime, I definitely think that we need to be a little tentative in our approach. And, I would even be open to, say, having, some council members tour the facility to kind of hear what that decibel level sounds like before we make a decision about it. But yeah, I support the shorter lease or bailout situation in case it's not the right fit for us.
I think that request can be met. We're going to have a couple of weeks before we meet again. So if you would reach out to Raylan and see if we can't get in the building at some point and so that you're comfortable with it. Okay?
Lori, thank you so much. We
But-
love that staff.
you.
We
But
love the library.
I do want to finish, Councilman, and to the council, we did have our staff there when a train came by, and your recommendation is to move forward with it anyway, even with the
Yes.
train.
Again, where the current library sits, we're on Rockwall Avenue, and we hear sirens go
Okay.
every 10 minutes. So we're used to this, sound,
Yep.
and the people that come inside the library and try to do various tasks are used to those sounds. We have the opportunity and the option to provide them with noise-canceling headphones and things like that, and try to mitigate as much noise as we can through what Pearson VUE recommends, but
So is this an accurate statement? Based on the positives and the negatives being the train coming by and all the positives being the usage of the building, when you weigh those two, you're asking the council to consider moving the Wings to this location?
as one of the locations of Wings.
Okay, all right. Just want to be clear on it. Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
again, hey, we do a good job. We vet things, and that's the way it's supposed to
appreciate
work. Yeah, we'll do the right thing for you as we move forward. But-
Thank you. I
Okay,
appreciate
thank
your
you for,
time.
thank you, you bet.
Yes.
Our next item on the agenda is discuss RFQ 24-06, Planning and Urban Design Services. Again, Downtown Project Manager Raylan Smith.
So just to kind of bring you up to speed, I'm going to go through this slideshow pretty quickly. City staff released RFQ 2406, which was for planning and urban design services. And so maybe if I can get it going, there we go. Here we go. I love to start a lot of my conversations with this map because this is our reality. And with all of these developments, what we are looking at is really needing some experts in the field. We have a lot of ideas. Our zoning ordinance tells us a lot of ideas. But as you've seen with some of the development agreements and also some of the platting that comes through with the city, we're getting a lot of green space. We're getting a lot of developers have ideas about how neighborhoods should flow. And we don't necessarily have the staffing within City Hall to look at these concept plans and make recommendations moving forward. And so what we would like to do is propose vendors that participated in the RFQ to be able to provide as-needed services whenever we're working through some of these development agreements. So it might be concept plans to help facilitate some of the negotiations with the developers, planning assistance whenever we're talking about the overall plan of an area or a development. And also, like I mentioned, the urban parks and the plazas and the promenades and some of this land that's being dedicated to the city, being able to have someone just through a task order that could look at this and provide some feedback. We would utilize this only as the developers reach out to the city for both infill and redevelopment. So this is not an ongoing task. We will not be looking for tasks to give these design experts, but as it's needed when our developers are bringing this stuff forward. So we were very impressed with the national responses that we did receive. I put in your presentation some of their work that they had done. We have a great combination of a lot of urban parks and green space and also some high-density developments and how those have worked in different neighborhoods. So again, we're not asking for any money to be allocated. I would be glad to share with y'all the full RFQs that were submitted by these vendors, but it was something to say that we did get national vendors to respond to our RFQ. So again, not asking for any funding, just letting you know that as these tasks come forward, that we would have this opportunity, and essentially this would be paid back through our PPP and funded through each of your TERS. So this would essentially be an expense that goes back on to the TERS as it's able to pay back.
Okay, so I guess, council, what we need to do is, one, are you okay with outside consultant coming in who specializes in planning and urban design? That's number one. Two, do you understand the reasoning behind reaching out to these consultants? Mainly because we don't have internal staff that can handle it and do as good a job. They'll do a great job with what we're able to do, and they have done in the past, but maybe we need outside eyes. I've been approached by folks in this field about wanting to help and assist. I don't know anything about designing or urban development, but I know that they exist. And what I've seen results in communities that have used them, they're very happy with their services. So
The level of staffing that can be
Yes.
provided with a firm like this is just like when we go out for consulting engineers. You have a level
yeah,
of multiple people.
right, and that's what they do. So they see national trends, they know what's worked, what hasn't worked, and it may keep you out of some trouble in the future on issues that we didn't think of or didn't cover. But does anybody have any feedback for Raylan?
Yes, Mayor. Are we asking the vendors here to collaborate in their efforts, or are we just having a bid to where we're going to?
No, depending on exactly what we're being asked to do from the developer, we have a wide range. This would be kind of like an umbrella acceptance of all qualifications. And
Having
so
different
between
flavors to
this,
choose from?
these five,
Yeah.
yeah, looking at their examples and looking at their level of expertise, we would be able to form fit a project for a particular consultant.
And I would say you're definitely going to have the kind of episode around here with all the growth that we have where somebody might come forward and say, hey, I've got this several 100-acre piece of land and I want to do this. Well, you know, a lot of times it's more effective if we say, okay, great, we're gonna grab firm A because they did something that really turned out well in another city that was about the same size, same access to a freeway, whatever it might be. You have somebody else come forward in another part of town, maybe they're next to one of our lakes, or maybe they're next to green space or something. Well, you might pick a different one of the firms for that because maybe they've got a different skill set, they've done a different project that was like that, or maybe they just have more free time during that 3-week period than the other guys. And so there'll be quite a few little small-scale contracts here, and we'll be able to say, okay, these guys all competed, and whenever we need to go grab one, we can grab the appropriate one for that project.
Love that. So just having it available at our
Right,
disposal.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Braylon, it sounds like we could use one of the 5 consultants, not only for a new development through a new developer, but also like an existing park. I'll just say like Breezy Hill as an example, or maybe there's another city park that is city funded, or just without a developer, right? We could go to the consultant and say, this is what we think we want to do with Stallings. I'm sorry, or Stallings,
Stallings, right.
or
Great
Stallings,
example.
or Stallings, or Kings Creek. So it doesn't have to be just a project with a developer.
Right, yes. No, the RFQ was written so that it laid out green space planning, park planning, et cetera. So there's a multitude of ways that you could look at this, but yeah.
Yeah,
it-
and I'll just go ahead and use the example in your district that sticks out, which is, we know there's cut-through traffic in, again, I'll keep nicknaming it the East Bryn neighborhood. There's cut-through traffic on several of those streets. There's land that we've been very open with the public that we would like to acquire from the county. It's publicly owned land. I don't mind saying out loud that we'd like to acquire land that Kaufman County owns that they have a utility barn on. It could be very, very useful for us to have a little concept plan from one of these companies and then go out and work with the developer to try to figure out, okay, what can we do? Can we attract a Texas Parks and Wildlife grant to that particular piece of land and to that project by having a good concept plan that helps get a Texas Parks and Wildlife to be our partner on something like that? That can be a very powerful thing, even if all I need is a couple of drawings for a grant application.
And so I'm trying to remember public-private partnerships, how funds roll into public-private partnership. If it's from development, or does it transfer over from the general fund? And here's why I'm asking. Would we look to have an additional fee for developments in areas where there's not a TERS in place to help pay for the fees from the consultant?
It's just going to vary. I'll use the TERS example first. So TERS number 2 is quite a large geographic area. And there is a negotiated dollar amount, which is $120,000 of, well, money that comes to the city for consultant expenses of the city related to anything under the sun related to our consultant expenses. That's an existing agreement with one of the developers in TERS number 2. So, you know, they'll have infrastructure to pay back, but we'll have consultant costs to pay back. So as money comes into that TERS, and we might hire one of these firms to do some work, then, you know, that's that financial engine, okay? If you have an example where You've got a public improvement district in town, well, we can do the same thing, because it's planning for our resources within that public improvement district. Are there going to be a handful of these that are outside of an existing TERS or PID structure? My answer to that is I hope so, right? Because what we would do then is we would spend out of the public-private partnership fund, and then whenever that TERS or whatever the financial structure we create to, say, facilitate an annexation, that would end up being the avenue that would pay back from a new TERS or a new PID or whatever it might be, and pay back into the public-private partnership fund. So it is not something where we would anticipate use of general fund dollars.
It would be on a case-by-case basis where we would add language around funding that would go towards the public-private partnership or through TERS,
It would be defined in
et
that.
cetera. But there's not an actual policy that we're thinking about putting in place for those areas that don't have a PID or,
Yeah, so I would just take the generic example of, let's say you've got an area that's outside the city limits, and a landowner comes forward and says, I would like to do such and such here. Do you think that the city might be willing to do a voluntary annexation in this zone? Well, as you guys know, that can become a very protracted, lengthy conversation, right? Well, it is very useful to us and to the developer and to the council if we can say, well, the developer hired their planner and their designer, and they drew up a plan that looked like this. And then I can work with our team, and Chris Snapp's operation, and Raylan and Jana can say, hey, we met with one of these firms. We said, nah, try it on this way. Why don't you guys take what you did in one of these other locations, tweak it a little bit, and then give us something where we can show the developer what we would call a better idea, a better plan, something that's more favorable to the long-term goals of the city of Terrell. Well, if we do that, all we're going to do is put a little check mark box there that says, okay, we spent some money out of the public-private partnership fund. Remember, these aren't intended to be large things. These are intended to be, that cost $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. And then after we spend that money, we keep track of that and we say, okay, whenever TERS number whatever with voluntary annexation number whatever happens at that location, now it's got an IOU that it needs to pay back the public-private partnership fund of that same thing. So that's the concept in an area where there isn't an existing structure. It's to use these to help us negotiate and create that financial structure.
okay, I appreciate the additional insight. Just trying to make sure that we're mindful of as we're creating new potential payments in the future that we're recouping our funds through one mechanism or another.
I'm curious, have we had problems in the past negotiating, when we look at our future and what we're going to be doing here with the developers and I'm wondering what the background is on this based on that. Is it just kind of the going standard or to have access to these?
Well, I would say it two different ways. One is, have we had problems? I don't feel like we've had problems. For the Arboretum Estates project, we used our planner who had worked with us on the comprehensive plan, and we still had some small contracts with him. We said, hey, we don't think the Arboretum Estates site plan really is hitting the punch, right? Mm-hmm. So we sent him over, and he spent, I'd say, 4 or 5 sessions spread out over about a 2-month period, sitting down with the engineer working for the Arboretum Estates developer. Didn't really cost us very much money, but he was able to say, instead of just doing it like this, maybe pedestrian circulation would be better if you did that. Maybe the arboretum would be better shaped like this and such. And he had that professional eye for those specific services, so we took advantage of that. And now that helped us negotiate the voluntary annexation. And so now that's the example I was using where we said, hey, we had upfront consultant expenses. you need to make sure that we get the first chunk of money out of the TERS to repay for that. So that's an example of where that idea has worked in the past. And this particular time around, we didn't want to go back to the old comprehensive plan consultant. I'd rather kind of take it fresh and see what firms have interest. And my comment to you is, I keep hearing, I keep seeing that both your Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council as a whole, you know, and this is appropriate, thankfully, y'all have high standards for what you want to see develop as new land. And whenever I can use a firm that's got one of these, you know, big national reputations and is very good at it and has pulled off good-looking stuff that we can walk around and look at elsewhere, I think that helps us. I really do, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Councilman, you got anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Raylan. Next item on the agenda is 5.5, discuss report regarding contract agreements between the City of Terrell, Union Pacific Railroad for preliminary engineering services and proposed railroad closure agreements. Again, downtown project manager Raylan Smith.
So this one is not fun at all. There's no pretty maps. There's nothing but pages and pages of agreements, but it's really good news. So moving forward with our quiet zone, we have filed our notice of intent, which means that the railroad crossing maintenance and the railroad crossing upgrades that we are proposing, which we've talked about the Chrissy grant, if those railroad crossings go into effect, then yes, we would qualify for a quiet zone. So each one of those does require UP to provide field diagnostic, inspection, construction review, project design, et cetera. And so these agreements as presented were accounted for whenever we did the overall engineering contract with Kimley Horn, and it is being paid for by the 2019 Kaufman County Bond Program. The one caveat to this, the additional request that we've had from UP is that we had in our documentation that we would be closing Delphine. So it does provide you points in the quiet zone process whenever you have a railroad crossing closure. So to make sure that we absorb those points and we do get credit for those whenever we do file for our quiet zone, that is why the notice of intent has already been filed. So Union Pacific is asking for this closure now instead of when the railroad crossing upgrades take place. And actually, that's at a cost savings to the city, because if we were to do the railroad closure ourselves, it's going to be about a $200,000 expense in our overall expenses for the railroad crossing, and UP has agreed to take on those expenses. They're upgrading some of the channeling in the tracks, and it just falls in alignment with their maintenance schedule this summer. If we'll go ahead and do this, and they called and said, pretty please, and I promised that I would bring it to y'all. But again, it will decrease some of our construction money and what we'll have to bring forward whenever we move forward. So these are just your standard UP maintenance agreements. We saw the same thing whenever we did our first diagnostic. So what this will do is get us all the way through plan review and construction of your railroad crossings.
So, they're willing to pay for it, but they're not giving us anything for it.
Well,
They're
we're
willing to
getting
pay for-
points.
they're
Yeah,
willing
we're
to
going
pay.
to get the points that we need for quiet zones. We were going to close it anyway for the points for the quiet zones. But to close it, there are certain closure expenses that you have to do. You have to do some of the street work, et cetera. And so what they're wanting to do is pay for that, pay for the closure expenses on their half, on their portion, whenever they're doing their maintenance to the track
The
this summer.
thing we're getting, the most important thing that we're getting is that by going through this particular procedure, we're getting the points in a quiet zone application. And we do not want to sign certain of these agreements before we sign other of these agreements, because what we want first is the points. Once we know that we're banking the points for the quiet zone, then it's okay to accept Union Pacific paying for the closure. We don't want to do it in the wrong order.
Right.
We want to make sure that we get our points and then allow them to pay for the cost of closing the crossing.
I understand the point. What I anticipate happening is that we're gonna make this closure, and then they're gonna have additional closures in order for us to qualify for the quiet zone.
That's why we're filing our notice of intent now. And we filed a notice of intent for each one, an individual NOI for each one of our railroad crossings, which specifically states upgrades, et cetera, that are going to be made, and also calculates that Delphine closure.
Okay. All right, we
How
have
many phone
assurances.
calls- How many phone calls did we have to verify that?
Yes, we have email documentation of the
Yes.
whole process and how we intend to do this and the steps to take to ensure that if it's closed, that we still get the points for this closure in the overall quiet zone. And so we have all those emails documented. Yeah, Raylan kind of really described it pretty well, but each of these agreements, like she stated, are for them to review our plans and then to do the engineering of their infrastructure, improved gates, arms and such that come down on these crossings. And we need to issue these now because of the closure at Delphine to get the credits for that. But it's also in order for us to have the railroad review our plans to get us input so we can get as far along as possible in the design before we apply for the Christie grant.
And I think the other important thing to say here is that start on the far east side. Garner is the furthest east item that will be in our Chrissy grant. Go all the way over to the west side. Bradshaw is the farthest west in our Chrissy grant. FM 148, we get to include as a quiet zone anyway because of the nature of the improvements we had to make there. So you got quiet zone from FM 148 to Garner. That's what we want to be able to make sure we're going to get points towards. And that's the step one in the documentation.
Okay.
And I guess to close the loop on what you stated, Mayor, we have been asked, we have said no to closing anything else between FM 148 and Garner. That area is just Delphine, and then the other improvements we're making with those, channels and other technology from FM 148 to Garner, that's what we're using to improve our safety scores. And even just simple things like the sidewalk improvements that we're making that make it safer out there and improve that channelization, that's where we're generating our points.
And I'm going to repeat one more thing that Raylan said to highlight it is in order to get that quiet zone, we were already having to close Delphine already. And so it's something that we were already having to do to get it. And so we are actually benefiting by closing it now because we will not have to pay for the ripping out of the road, the approaches, the panels that the railroad is going to have to lift up and take out. They said that they will incur those costs rather than us having to incur it years down the road on something that we were already going to have to close. So it's kind of it is a cost savings, but it's at a different closure earlier than when we anticipated with this project.
So when will we be closing Delphi?
Their summer schedule, they're looking at June or July. We'll get that exact schedule and we'll have to, make sure that's posted up, that will be.
This will come back to us on the 16th, May 7th for approval
Of the contracts, yes, sir.
for the contracts. And at that time, we'll be in a better position to say, yeah, this is the right action to take at this time. We already feel like it is. I understand that we were going to close Delphine anyway. What I don't want to lose any bargaining chips that I might have with UPRR as we move forward at this process of quiet zones.
Yes, so we're submitting, we officially have submitted the NOIs. We're going to get comments from the FRA back. And prior to the full agreement to close Delphine, we will have all those comments addressed and resubmitted.
Okay.
We will
right.
not advocate to sign these closure documents until we get the NOI officially signed.
Right.
That will be documented to say, we get credit for this closure since we have officially administered the NOI prior to closing it.
What I would like is double the points to close it early. That's what I would like. And we got a deal and we'll shut it down for you.
I do want to brag on Union Pacific. We have ended up with a great group of consultants And I mean, we were all scared starting this process, and they've done.
Well, here, moving forward, I hope we are able, we're in a position now to where we are working together and trying to get the quiet zones completed, not just talked about, not just about schedule, not just about in theory, but in reality, have those things closed. I hate losing bargaining chips with UPR. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is, because now what?
Yeah.
If they come back with another closure, we've just lost the one that we anticipated on closing. So, yeah. All right. If that's your stance, that's what the direction we need to move. And I agree with you that we were going to close it anyway. Yes.
My ask from the city, because Delphine is in District 3, is to have positive, get ahead of the game, whether it's like newspaper. We have the Santa meeting at Stallings on the 6th. Just being proactive in sharing the information about when, when the closure will happen. And, I'm like, how can we put a positive spin, or maybe just, kind of won't produce any of the negative kickback?
No, very quickly, a statement. In anticipation of moving forward with our quiet zones, we knew that we were going to be a closure, this closure was coming. In addition to save taxpayer money, we decided to move forward with it. We're still going to get our points, that type of thing. But we need to make sure Councilwoman's correct, get out in front of it and put the spin that we need on it. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Next item on the agenda is discuss contract recommendation for RFP 24-05 Virginia Street Park Improvements. Again, downtown project manager Raylan Smith.
And I will be done
Well,
after
you have
this.
worked hard tonight.
Listen, so, real quick, as you know, Paddock Board and also your TERS number 1, they split our downtown parking lot projects this fiscal year. So we released the bid. We had 4 vendors who applied. You do have available funds in both your Paddock Fund and also TERS number 1. So Paddock is responsible for your parking lot south, and TERS number 1 is your parking lot north. Bids were received, and we are recommending, after checking references and city lists that they gave us, we do recommend the low bid of King George Traffic Solutions LLC in an amount not to exceed $469,737.34. And this is coming to you by recommendation of the Paddock Board.
And we did our backgrounds on King George Traffic Solutions, the
Yes, sir.
company. And they've done projects similar without any issues, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Again, council, this will come to us at our next council meeting for approval. Does anybody have any questions on this
Raylan.
item? Yes.
Do we have any idea regarding the timeline for completion of the parking lots?
So it is going to be a 60 to 90-day construction window, depending on the weather. If you approve this May 7th, we should have notice to proceed by the end of May. So we're looking at a summer construction schedule.
Okay, and once it's completed, this will be free parking downtown?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Anyone else? Next item on the agenda, discuss good news report. This is going to be our public information officer, Allison Walker. If you'll notice, Allison is not using a cane or a walker.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am going to go fast. So this is the good news report for April. Oops, so fast, I'm going to skip a slide. Okay. This is kind of late in the game, but you'll see that the Terrell Police Department had their achievement awards back in March, and they presented their supervisor, officer, and civilian of the year, and then their 911 communications group was the unit of the year. And also this week, they are celebrating the National Telecommunications Week with their staff of 12. So congratulations to them. I think our chief is here, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the first time they're fully staffed. So that's another thing that's good news. Okay, this is the 2 new excavators and the skid steer that the city council approved. And these will be used in multiple departments. It's almost pool season, so they are looking to hire lifeguards and swim instructors. I know Sherry, the pool director, was out at the library event at the Eclipse Day and was looking to hire lifeguards, and they are coming along with that and have quite a few applicants already. So hopefully they will be fully staffed soon as well. This is your 2024 mosquito spraying schedule. And as much rain as we've had, that will be something that will be much in need. This is something that we put on our social media in the lobby. And then here's the schedule through September of this year. It's typically Tuesdays and Wednesdays, weather permitting, and sometimes they reschedule that if it's too wet, so. This I was hoping to be able to congratulate him in person. He was scheduled to give our invocation tonight. This is Father Ian Hyde at Good Shepherd, but he was highlighted in this nationwide publication and just talking about the growth of this congregation. It's an old congregation here, but since he's come to Terrell, they've experienced a lot of growth. But he was at a conference and apologized to me that he had not looked at his calendar. So anyway, we'll congratulate him next time he's with us. This is something that our housing department undergoes. It's an assessment program done by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and our housing department scored 100%. So that's very impressive, and we want to congratulate Denise and her staff for that perfect score. This is the utility crew certifications for water and wastewater training. You can see that this is TCEQ valve and hydrant maintenance course. DJ's here, and we want to congratulate all of those employees that successfully completed this. Okay, here's some quick highlights from our total solar eclipse. It was really a 2-day event for us. We did something downtown on Sunday, and then on Monday, we had some eclipse event at the library as well as in some of the parks. As y'all can see on the left there, those are just some of the states and actually countries that ended up coming to visit here. As an afterthought, we got people to start signing as they were painting the mural, and I think we ended up with people from 9 different countries here. So they were all very complimentary of Terrell, so we hope that they will come back and visit. This is another just little wrap-up. This is something that Raylan did after, just to congratulate, the team effort that it took to pull off all of our events. There was the Paint by Number mural at Rockwall and Moore. We encouraged our downtown merchants to stay open. We had dueling pianos down at Hummingbird Place on Moore Avenue. And then on Monday, the library hosted a big event, and it included, well, it's on the next page. I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, we kind of, Arlie gave me a hard time because there weren't as many people here as we had projected, but, I told him it's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. So I don't know if it was weather or Kaufman County issuing the emergency declaration, but it was a nice crowd, and everybody, I think, that came had a good time. Okay, this is a wrap-up of the library's solar eclipse watch party. They had 300 visitors from all over the world. They had a planetarium experience with 110 people. They had viewing areas on their lawn. They had food trucks. Their friends at the library sold T-shirts, and they had glasses for all of the people that showed up for the watch party. And then they had a live stream from an individual from Canada who actually broadcast to the elementary school where he's principal. So they did a great job, and one of the things that we're going to do as a result, let me go back to that. We have started collecting all of the leftover glasses that we've had, and the chamber and the city and also the library, we're going to be mailing off all of our leftover glasses to some of the other countries that may not be able to afford to supply them for their residents. So that's kind of a good community outreach for us. Okay, this is our youth sports update. You can see for baseball, we are partnering with Terrell Youth Athletes. And for the spring, there's 157 athletes registered for baseball. For softball, again, it's a TYA program. We had 64 athletes for the spring. For track and field, registration through May. And we have 30 athletes registered to date on that. And then for the North Texas Longhorns, we have 48 athletes. And then for soccer, it's a partnership with TISD, 586 athletes. And then, let's see, 7 and 7 on football. I could flip through my own notes here, but 38 athletes. Thank you. This is just a highlight on some of the development news. The EDC is under negotiations for 3 different restaurants, including Twin Peaks out at Crossroads, downtown Soldier's Daughters Diner. I know you'll have heard this for months, but they really said they're going to open in the next few weeks. The new physical therapy clinic, of which I was the very first patient, is up and running in the Buford building. The Lyric is selling coffee, pastries, wine, and beer. So if y'all haven't been over there, please visit there. And then there's a new event venue that is projected to open soon at the Shops at Terrell. Okay, this is something I just got today by email, and this is the Ride Free Rider Appreciation Week that Star Transit does. April 22nd through 28th, anybody can ride free, and they will have a prize patrol making surprise visits to these different vehicles, and lucky riders that will get free giveaways. So if y'all know of anybody that wants to ride for free, through the 28th. Sneak peek on the Terrell Taco Festival, May the 4th. This year, we're doing that from 11 to 4 downtown. I think this is our 5th year. I think that's right. And that's it. Y'all have any questions for me?
Anybody have any
Allison,
comments?
I just wanted to quickly mention, just as another community item, that our local Vagabond players, just some more good news. They're putting on a local performance that's, I think it's called the Second to Last Chance Ladies League. And they have openings to see it on Saturday night and Sunday during the day. So I think Saturday the, let's see, I think the 14th and the 21st are the days that they have open currently. But yeah, Gail.
So if
Harris
anybody
asked-
needs tickets to that, you can contact Gail at Books and Crannies.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's perfect.
Right.
And just last item I wanted to mention, just to keep this alive for council, just I'd like to continue kind of discussing our sort of public scholarship piece with regard to softball to potentially help some of our disadvantaged young athletes play sports in our community. But thanks for the update, Allison. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is 6.1.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight ordinance number 3043, an ordinance of the city of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, amending Chapter 12, Utilities, Section 15, Water Conservation and Drought Contingency Plan by repealing ordinance number 2763 in its entirety and replacing it with a new Water Conservation and Drought Contingency Plan, providing penalties, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for the disconnection of water service for noncompliance, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
All right, this item is going to be handled by our Director of Utilities, DJ Brower. DJ?
Yes, as we discussed, good evening, Mayor and Council. As we discussed at our last meeting, this is a 5-year plan. We have to renew it every 5 years. It's part of our commitment with North Texas and with the Texas Water Development Board. It is pretty much a standard contract that's used by all the cities. It's not a contract, it's a plan that's used by all the cities that participate with North Texas Water Utility District. And it requires us to reduce our water use if a drought or an emergency is drafted either by the city manager, you as the mayor, or the governor of Texas. And at that time, we would implement the plan as required by reducing the number of watering days, et cetera, that are all outlined in the plan. They're pretty much the same as they were the previous 5 years.
Yeah, so, council, we reviewed this at our last meeting. Does anybody have any new questions for DJ? Hearing none, is there a motion on ordinance number 3043?
Yes, Mayor, motion to approve ordinance number 3043.
There's a motion, is there a second?
A second.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, District 4, to approve ordinance number 3043 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 6.2, discuss and consider veterinary services for the City of Terrell Animal Shelter. This is going to be handled by our interim Police Chief Arlie Sampson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a quick review. We had one submission. Typically, we only have one. They are been very consistent over the last several years. We're pleased with their services, and the request is that y'all would award the contract based on the second reading tonight.
This not to exceed amount of what? Do we have that? Is it monthly?
It's the contract as presented because it's a fee per service. If we do
Okay.
more, then we pay more.
Got it.
The fees are embedded in the contract.
Okay, got it. So this isn't not to exceed, it's just the contract itself
That's correct.
for veterinary services. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mayor, motion to approve item 6.2.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, to enter into agreement for veterinary service for the City of Terrell Animal Shelter. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in
Real
favor, let it
quickly,
be
Mayor.
known by- Yes.
Quickly, Mayor, this is Phil. I just want to make sure that we don't overlook the need for some ongoing sort of events that allow for us to give lower cost or potentially free spay and neutering for some of our stray animals, along with just sort of this overall cost. If we had some special events for those who are more disadvantaged.
Okay, duly noted. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is discuss and consider awarding health inspector services. This is going to be handled by Chris Snap, our city engineer.
Council, Mayor, City Manager. This is the second item here that we come to discuss again. This is discuss and consider the health inspector services for the City of Terrell. We went out for our RFQ and we received 4 responses back to that. As we stated, we had an evaluation team put together. There's the evaluation team as they came in and what they are. These are very similar to what you just heard on a fee basis. This is not to exceed issue. This is basically, the numbers that you see is to give you an order of magnitude. So as you can see, we had to do somewhat of comparison, so I wanted to show you the fees that we're looking at with the amount of regular inspections, complaints, when these were all estimated, except the number of routine inspections, those are required. So that kind of gives you an order of magnitude of what we were looking at for the future on this contract, is we will enter into a contract with David Marshall. David Marshall is sitting in the back. He's been very patient throughout this evening. So he's looking forward to working with us. I believe it'd be a good asset. So the staff recommends that the city get into a contract with DCA Inspection Services for 1 year.
All right, council, does anybody have any questions for Chris Snap on this? Again, we reviewed this at our last meeting.
That's correct.
And just for the record, you know, David Marshall is here tonight. So thank you for being here and waiting patiently for this item. Again, the motion would be to enter into contract with Health Inspector Services with DCA Inspection Services. A 1-year contract. Is there a motion on this item?
Motion to approve Health Inspector Services contract with DCA Inspection Services for 1 year.
Have a motion from, there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Phil Robinson, District 5, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to enter into a contract and agreement for services with DCA Inspection Services for 1 year. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? So motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 7.1, discuss and consider the minutes. Oh, no.
Consent agenda.
We're on the consent agenda. So at this time, we can take the consent agenda as presented. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is our reports. Those are housing monthly reports, our Star Transit ridership report, and our fire department monthly report. If you would review those, and if you have any questions, please reach out to our staff on those items. We are now adjourned.